so this process, when we think about the process of transformation, it also involves this idea of intentionality for us. I mean, we've got to follow God. There is no transformation without following God. I mean, we've got to have God's Word in us. We've got to be in the Word if there's going to be transformation. It doesn't happen by accident. We have to follow Him even in the midst of some of the most difficult circumstances and adversity that might exist in the church. We still follow Him. And we need to develop the kind of character that is worth emulating. Now, we've spent a lot of time already talking much about that, but tomorrow morning we're going to be talking about here. In Psalm 15, he tells us that we need to walk with integrity, work righteousness, and speak truth in our heart. That's the kind of character that God is looking for. But when it comes to leading God's people, we need to be an intercessor. Even in some of the most difficult and challenging times, we need to stand for God's people. If you have your Bibles, I want you to open to the book of Esther just real quick. To me, this is one of the great texts. And I heard a lesson back in September that emphasized this. And I thought at the time I heard it, man, that is one of the best and most powerful definitions of leadership that I've ever seen. I'm not going to tell the story because we don't have the time, and you probably know it anyway. But I want you to look at the very last verse in the book. In chapter 10, notice verse 3. You know that Mordecai, after Haman has been hung on his own gallows, it says, Mordecai the Jew was second only to King Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and in favor with his kinsmen. And here's the point. One who sought the good of his people, and one who spoke for the welfare of his whole nation. You want to find a leader? That's a leader. The one who seeks the good of his people and speaks for the welfare of the whole nation. That is what Moses did. And that's what we need to do. We need to seek what is good for the people who are following us and to speak for their welfare. Transformation process involves not just preparation, it involves intentionality. And the part that I want to spend some time talking about when we wrap this thing up is the very last step. The very last step, when it comes to this process of transformation, this call to character, involves focus. And when I use the term focus, I'm talking about vision, mission, and strategic planning. For those of you who know me, you know that this is the biggest part of what I do with SALT. And let me just plug SALT real quick here before I get into this. SALT, the Sunset Academy of Leadership Training, was designed to help congregations not only to strengthen their current leadership, but to prepare the next generation to lead and to put in place plans that will help congregations do that. We want to be a resource to congregations to help them in these areas. And there are a number of different components. And you can go to the website. It is salt.sunset.bible. And there are listed on that website 80 lessons that you can download and use in your congregation to have ongoing leadership training classes. Those lessons are on there for free. Feel free to use them at whatever length you want to. But the other thing that we do is we go into and work with congregations to help them in whatever area is needed. And let me just say this, we come at no expense. Mission America, which was established by Chris Winford, was for the purpose of giving back to help congregations in an area that is so needed and critical in our world today. And so, please don't think, oh, this is just going to cost too much. It's at no expense to you. I will come. There are others who are come. We actually have a team of people that can come and work with congregations in so many different areas, from either church growth to the aspect of leadership. And so if we can be of assistance to you, please contact us and let us know. We're glad to do that. Now, when we think about this idea of focus, we look at the children of Israel, we look at Moses and what was taking place there with him. The problem with the children of Israel when it came to going into the land, they knew the mission. They knew the plan. God had told them to go into the land, to take the land. He would go with them. He would go before them. He would fight the battles for them. All of that stuff. Now, did they still have to fight the battles? Yes. Was it going to be easy for them? No. But the problem was not the mission. And the same is true with us today in the church. Our problem is not the mission. We know the mission. We call it the Great Co-mission. We know the mission that is set before us. Our problem, like the children of Israel, is vision. I'll explain it in this way. In the book of Numbers, chapters 13 and 14, Moses selected one man from each of the 12 sons of Israel, 12 men. He sent into the land of Canaan to spy it out and to bring back a report. And he told them, I want you to come back and tell us what kind of people are living in the land. Are there giants in the land? And then he said, I want you to tell us what kind of cities do they live in. Are they fortified cities? And then, oddly enough, amidst all of this military jargon, he says, and bring back some fruit from the land. The only thing I can think of is God had told them that He was going to give them this land flowing with milk and honey. And so they wanted to know what some of that was like. And I tell you personally, I want to eat a grape that came from a cluster that had to be carried on a pole between two men. I don't know, was it the size of a softball or maybe a bowling ball? I don't know, I just want to taste it. I just can't imagine. It'd be awesome. And so these 12 spies go up in there for 40 days. And they come back. And you know, Joshua and Caleb, those two great men. They said, God will give us the land. Let us go in and take the land. People didn't listen to them because there were 10 spies. It wasn't the problem with the mission. They knew the mission. The problem was the vision. And I want you to listen to what these 10 men said. We, the sons of Anak, the Nephilim, they're in the land. These are giants. And he said, we were as grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in theirs. That's a vision problem. And did you notice? I tell you, I've been teaching this for years, and it was just in preparation for today that I noticed I've been saying it backwards. And the difference is impactful. They didn't say we were as grasshoppers in their sight, and so we were in our own. They said we were grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in theirs. The way they saw themselves influenced the way the people in the land saw them. And it makes me wonder, when we think about the mission that is before us, if the problem is not the way that we see ourselves, and because of the way we see ourselves, it has influenced the way the world sees us. It's about vision. Now let me just explain the difference very briefly between vision, mission, and strategic planning. I call it the who, how, and what of leadership. So many times when I ask people, do you have a vision? And they'll say yes, and they'll tell it to me. I'm like, no, that's a mission statement. You see, a vision is about who we are going to become. It's what we want to be. But a mission statement involves how we're going to achieve that. And the strategic planning involves the goals and the plans, the what specifically we're going to do to bring that all about. And if we can understand the distinction between those three areas, we're going to see a great improvement in the direction of how we approach our vision. So why is this vision so important? Well, I'm going to share a couple of reasons with you. Number one, it informs our decision-making process. I've sat in a lot of elders' meetings over the years. 30 years of ministry, I've sat in a lot of elders' meetings. And I've seen people come in and say, man, we'd like to do this. And elders like, I'm not sure. We need to think about that. Do we have enough money to do that? Do we have enough people to do that? And then the discussion goes round and round and round. If we have a vision, then the question is simply this: will this help us achieve our vision? If the answer is no, then the answer is no. We don't do it. If it's going to help us achieve our vision, then we need to pour every ounce of our resources that we have available into doing that, because that's where we're headed. That's who we want to be. You see, without this vision, we're kind of like the children of Israel. We just wander around in the desert. We just keep doing the same things in the same ways, expecting different results. And you know what that is. I think I heard somebody whisper it: insanity. I mean, it's crazy. And the answer I get when I ask people, why do we still do that? They say, that's the way we've always done it. It's killing us in the church. Because we don't know. Things just become less and less effective. We're trying to figure out a new program, a new plan. We take the same percentage of people in the congregation that are active in all these other things. We give more to them. They get burned out. We're trying to figure out what's happening to us. We have no vision. We need to know who we are going to become. And let me add to that. It will help us create unity in the church. Instead of fighting over all of these opinions and nitpicky things that mean nothing, like the color of the carpet and where we're going to put the pews or chairs or whatever it is, we got to stop this. Because we're grasshoppers in our own sight. And so we have become in the eyes of the world. They see us as no different than anybody else in the religious world because we're doing the same things that everybody else is. Dividing over trivial things. A division will create some unity. It shows us who we're going to become. It also helps inspire people to a just cause. I'd encourage you to read and listen to anything Simon Sinek does. I tell you, he's one of my favorite authors. He's one of my favorite people to watch on YouTube and listen to. Simon Sinek is, I want a job where you become an optimist. That's his job title. I don't know how you get that, but I want it. What do you do for a living? I'm an optimist. We need that. We need a lot more of that. But his recent book that he published is called The Infinite Game. And in there, he describes a just cause in this way. A just cause is a specific vision of what does not yet exist that is so appealing that people are willing to make sacrifice in order to achieve it. That's what we need. That's why this just cause inspires people to that vision. And when we have that vision, it will create a greater future for us and where we are headed because of who we're going to become. Now, there's a whole process that goes into developing that vision. And it's one of my favorite things to do in working with congregations, to help them create that vision and help them see how to get to that destination, to become that people that they want to be. Because once we have the vision, then the mission is a whole lot easier to plug in. And to set the goals and do the planning will help us achieve that. I realize that transformation, the process of transformation, may look somewhat different to individuals and congregations. But there are 3 steps that are critical to it. And what I'm talking about in those 3 steps involve preparation. Sometimes it's going through the desert, the wilderness, that helps prepare us, those trials and those challenges. But we have to be intentional about what we're doing, or we'll never achieve it. But we need to have focus. A focus that involves vision, mission, and strategic planning. I just, as briefly as I know how, I want to share with you. There are 3 books in this series. And to me, I think they're very critical to understanding transformation when it comes to leadership. The 3 books in the series, they don't have an author. They're just put out by the Arbinger Institutes. Leadership and Self-Deception, The Anatomy of Peace, and The Outward Mindset. They're very corporate in nature. I'll just tell you that up front. But to be corporate in nature, they have such an incredible spiritual focus on the outcome. I just want to explain briefly kind of how it works. Now, the books describe what they call a choice diagram. In a choice diagram, there is this concept of we have a choice to make, and we have a sense of what the right thing is to do. And if we do that, then everything works out great. But if we don't do that, if we go against that sense, if we don't honor that sense of what the right thing is to do, then we betray ourselves. And we get in this box of self-deception. Now, what's interesting about getting in that box of self-deception, when that happens, everything changes. The way I feel about myself, the way I feel about others, even my worldview begins to change. Now, what's interesting is that in that moment, I'm going to inflate my own virtues. I'm going to inflate the faults of others. And ultimately, I'm going to blame them. That's the way this works. That's self-deception. I love the fact that he illustrates in the book in this way because I can relate to it. He describes laying next to his wife in the bed. And she's a beautiful lady, great wife, super mother. Always preparing foods, making sure his clothes are taken care of. He describes these things about her that's just awesome. And then the baby cries. And in that moment, he's faced with a decision. The sense that he has to honor is, I should get up and take care of that baby. But he decides not to do that. And in the moment he does, everything changes. The way he thinks, the way he feels. And he says, why doesn't she get up and take care of that baby? She knows I work hard all week. I make it possible for her to be able to stay home and take care of that. She's probably just over there faking it. She's not really asleep. She just wants me to get up and take care of that baby. So he starts making her out to be this wicked person. Now the question is, before the baby cried, was she that person? No. It wasn't until he betrayed the sense of what he should have done, and he got in that box and everything changed. Now in the second book, The Anatomy of Peace, he kind of describes the science, if you will, behind this concept of the box and how we get in the box, how we get out of the box. And he talks about 4 types of boxes. The first box is the better than box. It's the box we get into when we think we're just a little better than everybody else. You know, people ought to be glad that I'm here. That kind of thinking. The second box is the I deserve box. This is the box of entitlement. I'm always fascinated by, don't get me wrong, but when young men come out of college and they have a bachelor's degree in something, I have no idea what, but they're like, I should have a job making $150,000 a year. I should be able to drive a Maserati and live in a $350,000 house. I'm like, and why? Because I deserve. The third box is one I refer to oftentimes as the Christian box, although it can apply to a number of different boxes. It's the must be seen as box. And the way I describe it is this, because I've done this. Driving down the road, heading to the worship service, either fighting with the wife or fighting with the kids. The minute I get out and come in the building, it's like, hey, brother, how are you doing? It's so great to see you. Praise God, it's so good to be a Christian. And then as soon as I go out after the service is over, get in the car, I'm fighting with my wife again. Because I need to be seen with my Christian coat on when I come into the building. You can apply that in a lot of different ways. And then the last box is the less than box. This is kind of the self-pity party. You know, if I'd been born Bill Gates' son, and I had all that money, I wouldn't have all these problems that I have now, and I'd be able to achieve anything I wanted to. You get the point. But you see, the problem is that we can be in any one of those boxes at any time, and we might be in all 4 of them, even in the same day. I mean, we get in and out of the boxes all the time. The challenge is, how do we get out and how do we stay out? And the answer is found in the third book, The Outward Mindset. And this is the transformational process. Because we have to be transformed in our minds if we're going to move from thinking about ourselves to thinking of others. And the idea is that before we speak, before we act, we need to ask ourselves, will this decision I'm about to make be better for the other person? Is it going to help them achieve success? Is it going to make them a better leader in their home, a better leader on their job? Is it going to make them a better leader in their community? Is it going to help them achieve better financial situation? Is what I'm about to do going to be better for them? Or is it because of my own self-pride I'm making this decision? That's a tough place to be. And it's easier to say than it is to do.